Hi there, my name is Twan and I'm from Milsim Paintball Kirkland. We're a group in Kirkland, Washington that plays Milsim Paintball. I'm here today to go over the concept of what Milsim Paintball is and also more specifically the firearms and the accessories and the equipment, the clothing, all the things you can get and start using to start enjoying Milsim Paintball and actually playing the correct style of Milsim Paintball. So let's go over what Milsim really stands for, and as everybody knows, it stands for military simulation. So in essence, what you're trying to do is simulate or replicate as best as you can all the military firearms, clothing, accessories, that our military uses. In truth, the basic gist of it is really what you're trying to do is make it as realistic as possible as you can, all the equipment that we're going to be using, whether they're going to be the markers, the clothing, everything, to try to make it as realistic as possible, as close to the real firearms as possible. So I will go over that in depth as far as all the stages that you can use, from all the basic stages all the way to the final stages as far as how realistic you can make it. And as you can see behind me, I have all different types of markers and equipment and clothing, and I'll go over with you step by step. All right? So first off, stage one, I guess, if you want to say it, the marker that we recommend the most as far as starting out would be Tippmann A5 or something very similar to the Tippmann A5. The reason being is when you playing Milsim, the most important thing, honestly, really is trying to limit the capacity of your marker to replicate real-life firearms. And so in that respect, real-life firearms, they hold roughly 30 rounds in their magazine. And so if you're running some type of hopper that's holding 200 or more rounds, it's not really realistic. So the cool thing about the cyclone feed of the A5 and similar markers like it is that you can buy a $10 tack cap, and in essence that will limit your capacity to 30 rounds, and that will replicate a real-life firearm capacity. So the other great thing about it is that the A5 itself is relatively inexpensive. You can find these used for $100, and brand new they're about $175. So for under $200 you can start playing Milsim, and for pretty cheap. And also, the gun itself, it's really reliable. It takes a beating, and it really doesn't have that much problems for the most part. So for someone starting out, not looking to spend a whole lot of money, this is probably the marker I would recommend. Now, progressing to the next level, if you want to, like stage 2 or stage 3, there's 2 steps you can do. You could obviously modify your basic A5 or a similar marker to start looking and feeling more like a real firearm. And I have an example of that here. So this is an A5 that I have modified to look like an MP5A3, and in essence it's mostly cosmetic. It's stock, fake magazine, foregrip. It's just cosmetic. It doesn't function like a real firearm. It's still pretty much an A5 paintball gun that just looks like a real firearm. Once again, you can run the tack cap on it, so it simulates a real MP5 loadout, which is 30 rounds. And for the most part, you can have a really cool looking marker that simulates pretty close to what a real life firearm can do. However, there's still a couple things that don't really make it a real firearm, correct? I mean, you have a hopper feed system. It's not a magazine feed system. And then obviously the airline, you still have some type of, remote line that you have to run for the air system. So You know, a real life firearm's not going to have an air hose going to the bottom of it, nor is it going to have a hopper feed type system, okay? But you're getting pretty close now, and for the cost, you know, this marker will probably run you roughly $300 for the marker and all the accessories. It's pretty affordable to get a really cool looking marker to play Milsim, okay? Now, I want to make a point is that even though the marker looks like a real firearm, as soon as you put the 200 round hopper on it, it's no longer Milsim, right? I mean, an MP5, there's no real life magazine that offers for an MP5 that holds 200 rounds. Nor does it look like this, you know, sitting on top of the marker like this. So a lot of people will tell you, or online on, you know, showing you the videos, that this is a Milsim type marker, but it's not. It's not realistic. It doesn't hold a realistic capacity. So this is not Milsim, okay? So like I was saying earlier, that would be like stage 2, you know, modifying the basic marker to look more like a real life firearm. Stage 3 obviously would be if you can get a conversion kit, right, to make it feed magazines, so that way you can use a magazine feed type system. And luckily for us, Takamo have come out with a conversion kit that you can install onto your A5 and other similar markers to use a magazine. And I have a kit here for an example. And this is pretty much everything that comes with a kit to convert it to a magazine feed style. And that would be obviously more realistic than the stage 2, right? Because once you can convert it to using a magazine, the operation of it is like a real firearm. Just like a real firearm takes real magazines. So that would be stage 3. So once again, just using your basic A5 and installing a magazine conversion kit, you can get a pretty darn realistic looking firearm and to play Milsim. Now, you've addressed the feeding issue, but obviously you haven't addressed the air issue. And there are mods to convert your air so that way it'll take a buttstock in the rear. And I have an example of that here. So this is a RAP4 T68, and it obviously has the internal air adapter, so that way you can run the air tank buttstock setup. So that way, in essence, it looks like a real firearm. You're not installing any type of remote line or have any type of air tank in your back. You know, no real life firearms use that. It takes a magazine, right? So it feeds like a real life firearm. And also, you know, the look, the weight, and the feel, it's like a real firearm. In essence, an M4 type of weapon, okay? Now, from stage 1 to stage 2 and stage 3, you have to make that choice, right? Because you're going to end up spending about $300 to make a stage 2 type marker. Where if you decide to go with a magazine route, you're going to end up spending roughly the same, right? With the basic A5 and a conversion kit, you're going to end up spending about $300 as well. So you're going to really have to make that choice of whether you want to go magazine feed or stay with hopper feed. And it comes down to obviously finances, you know, because magazines are going to cost you more. You're going to have to buy more magazines to obviously hold more rounds. You know, each one of these are $30, so it can start adding up pretty quickly. And in the same time, I mean, you can really still enjoy the Milsim style of gameplay by sticking with, you know, a hopper feed still. You can run a gun like this, or I have another example here. You can run an A5 that's been converted to a saw, and obviously this one now, because of the real life firearm being able to hold 200 rounds, you can actually use a 200 round hopper. And simulate a real-life firearm. So you can still enjoy all the true concepts of Milsim with the hopper feed, as long as you're modifying the marker correctly for the style of gun that you want to use. Now, the feeding systems for the hoppers, right, are obviously not as realistic either. So that's a good point to make, is that they're still going to have to somehow hold your ammo with pods. And obviously this is not very realistic, but it's what we have, unfortunately. So, right, you're going to have to make do with what you have. So if you decide to stay hopper feed, you're going to have to use pods. We try to obviously limit your loadout still to a realistic loadout, which is typically around 200 to 250 rounds, you know, that a person can hold on their body at one time. So no, you know, multiple pods with 500 rounds on your person. You know, no one's gonna hold 500 rounds of loose ammo on them in a real life situation, right? So try to keep it realistic by maintaining the correct loadout on your person as well, not just the marker. Now, moving on to stage 3 and stage 4 as far as more realistic firearms. I showed you the T68 already, magazine fed. In essence, the more realistic markers are going to be magazine fed, because then at that point you're starting to replicate, simulate a real life firearms feeding system, and also loadout. You know, the magazine holds 20 rounds. Now, obviously, real-life firearms hold 30, but we're getting close, and we're keeping it as realistic as possible. I have another version here of the saw that I have modified to use magazines. It's, once again, it's just a basic A5 with the saw body kit, and it's got the magazine conversion kit that I showed you earlier from Takamo, and it can accept the 200 round box magazine from RAP4. And so now you have a really realistic saw compared to the one I showed you earlier with the hopper. And so once again, we're just obviously progressing and trying to make the firearm more realistic as possible. And not only the feeding, looks, and weight, but also, you know, no airlines or anything like that. So like I said, you know, trying to keep it as realistic as possible. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the 43 caliber markers, because they are very realistic. I have one here. This is a APS RAM METS marker. It looks really like a real life M4. I mean, it really doesn't get more realistic than this. As you all know, it has the shell ejection, 20 round magazines. It even has the feature where when the magazine is empty, it will in essence disable the trigger so that it's like simulates that you can't fire after the magazine is empty. And so it has really realistic features like that. You also can get the 43 caliber pistols to match the rifles, or you can use it with the 68 caliber stuff too as a backup weapon. But once again, you know, it's like simulates the real life pistol. This is simulating a 6-hour 226. It's got a magazine just like the real thing. It holds 9 rounds. It functions and it has all the basic features and operations of pretty much a real life pistol. So this would be in essence, all the magazine stuff would be kind of, I guess, the last stage of what you're trying to do. So I would definitely recommend them if you can afford it financially to go to magazine type markers, because at that point you are simulating the best you can military weapons. One point though of note is that the 43 caliber stuff, while they are cool looking and they do replicate a real life firearm as much as possible, they are a little bit burden sometimes, I guess is the word. There's a lot of things that you have to deal with, for instance, like feeding the paintballs or your powder balls into the shells. That's just one more thing you have to deal with. You also have to deal with the ballistics of the marker is not as good as the 68, meaning that the caliber is smaller, so you really don't see the paintball or the powder ball hit as well. And the person that you probably hit, they probably won't feel it as much because the round is a little bit smaller. So as far as an advantage is concerned, I would definitely recommend the 68 caliber stuff, just because you get that added range and just as far as just energy that a person can actually call themselves out. I would recommend the 68 stuff over that. Moving on, we'll go to some of the accessories that you can use to help play with these type of markers. And I have a couple of vests here. This is the vest I use when I play the saw gunner, and it pretty much has two pockets in the front to hold my box magazines. It has the pistol pouches here to hold my pistol magazines. And it's also in a real-life military camouflage, which is the multi-cam camouflage. And so, once again, we're trying to simulate military accessories as much as we can, so it's really cool to have something like this that you can use to hold all your gear, and at the same time really replicate, you know, what a soldier would have, right? I also have here, this is my vest that I use, and it's in digital camo, as you can see. And it's the vest I use when I play with the T68, and you know, it holds 6 magazines in the pockets here. Once again, pistol pouch, radio pouch, that type of thing. So you can use different vests with different pockets and different accessories depending on which marker you plan to use. And then in Milsim, obviously, a lot of people talk about teamwork in Milsim. And there's several reasons for why teamwork is so important in Milsim. But once again, the most important thing is because of the capacity of the marker, right? You're only going to have 20 or 30 rounds in your marker at one time. And so your firepower is not that great. And so if you don't work together as a team, and you have multiple people firing at the enemy, or at least covering and firing as you move, you're not going to get that much paintballs or powder balls on a person or your enemy. And so one person's not going to be able to have a lot of firepower. So that's really one of the most important reasons why teamwork is so important, because you really need the whole team there to effectively lay a lot of firepower onto the enemy. Also, if you have a saw gunner on the team, obviously he's a really an important role, because he has 200 rounds in the marker and he can lay suppressive fire, so that way the other teammates can move. Once again, teamwork. As one person is laying suppressive fire, the other person can flank, the other person can retreat, the other person in essence can do what they need to do in the battlefield. And so that's why teamwork is so important. Going to that, obviously, you know, you're going to want to use walkie-talkies and the sort to communicate with one another. And so it just adds to the realism of what it would be like in real life, right? Show you a couple more basic accessories before I close out the video. I have my camouflage here that I use when I play. Like, once again, multi-cam and digicam. I also use a mag pouch, that way I can hold an extra magazines when I need to. And then also a leg holster to hold my pistol when I play it as a backup weapon. So, as you can see, you can start using a lot of real-life equipment, a lot of you know, real firearms, holsters, vests, clothing, all that type of stuff to help you play Milsim Paintball. Final note, when I say Milsim Paintball too, I want to let you guys know that I do include Powderball into that conversation, and in a later video I will show you why, but for now just realize that when I say Milsim Paintball, I really mean paintball and powder balls, okay? So thank you for watching my video. I hopefully that explained a little bit more of what you guys can use to start enjoying Milsim Paintball. And then also look out for my upcoming videos where I will be test firing some of my markers and also showing you what works and what doesn't work with them. And also just some of the other questions you might have as far as CO2 or compressed air, paintballs or powder balls, 43 caliber or 68 caliber, what vests is, what pockets to use, you know, should I stay with hopper or should I stay with magazine? Some of those questions will be answered more in depth in more of my upcoming videos. So once again, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.